It was almost 8 in the evening when I saw her, my daughter, kneeling on the wet pavement outside a grand mansion, her body trembling under the freezing rain. From inside that house, I could hear laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. They were celebrating while she was out here breaking. I ran toward her, my umbrella slipping from my hands as I knelt beside her. "Lena, my baby, what happened?" Her lips quivered, her eyes empty. "I just bought a dress, Mom. A maternity dress. And they threw me out." That single sentence tore through me like a blade. Earlier that night, I had been driving through the storm, windshield wipers fighting against sheets of rain. On the seat beside me was Lena's favorite homemade casserole, something I hoped might help her eat despite her constant nausea. She was 3 months pregnant, and lately nothing stayed down. When I stopped outside the Carter family mansion, I could hear the party even through the downpour. I rang the bell once, twice, no one came. Worry clawed at my chest. I called Lena's phone, no answer. Then voicemail. Something was wrong. I walked around the side gate and froze. There she was, kneeling, soaked, shivering. The floral dress she'd worn just days ago was plastered to her skin, her small baby bump barely visible beneath it. Her tears mixed with the rain. I couldn't tell one from the other. I wrapped my coat around her shoulders and lifted her up. And in that moment, the quiet fury I'd buried for years exploded. With one kick, the kind I hadn't used since my taekwondo days, I smashed the back door open. Wood splintered. Silence fell inside. Every face in that luxurious living room turned toward me, stunned. Her husband, Ethan Carter, dropped his controller. His mother, Margaret, froze with a glass of wine halfway to her lips. "God will not forgive this cruelty," I shouted, my voice echoing through their hall. No one answered. No one answered. Their eyes were cold, detached, as if we were the ones interrupting their fun. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to say in that house. I turned and walked back into the rain, holding my daughter close. Minutes later, the car screeched to a stop under the hospital lights. Nurses rushed over, voices shouting, hands grabbing stretchers. They wheeled Lena away behind double doors, leaving me standing in the hallway, drenched, shaking, empty. I sank into a chair, my heart pounding. I had promised to protect her, and somehow I'd failed again. A nurse placed a blanket over my shoulders. "She's in good hands," she whispered. But deep inside, I already knew some wounds go far beyond the body. That night was only the beginning. What the doctors told me next would shatter the last pieces of my heart and spark a storm that the Carter family never saw coming. The smell of disinfectant filled the hospital hallway. Every sound, the squeak of wheels, the soft echo of hurried footsteps, felt painfully sharp against my ears. I sat on a cold plastic chair, staring at the floor, waiting, praying. Minutes crawled into hours. When the door finally opened, a gray-haired doctor stepped out, removing his mask. His expression told me everything before he spoke. "Mrs. Rivera," he began quietly, "your daughter suffered severe hypothermia. Her body went into shock. We did everything we could, but we couldn't save the baby." The porcelain cup in my hands fell and shattered. Hot tea splashed across the floor, but I felt nothing. No sound, no air, just the echo of my own heartbeat. Inside that sterile corridor, something inside me died with my grandchild. When I was younger, people called me Elena, the Falcon Rivera, a national taekwondo champion. The medal still hangs somewhere in an old box. I was strong then, fast, fearless. And beside me stood my coach and husband, Victor. Together, we were unstoppable. Until the day I heard the sound that ended it all, a sharp crack in my left knee mid-spin. My dream shattered. And so did he. The man who once lifted me up began drowning himself in bottles and bitterness. "You ruined everything," he used to say, his words slurred, his hands shaking. At first it was shouting. Then came the shoves. Then one night, a slap. Our daughter, Lena, barely 10 at the time, ran between us, trying to stop her father. "Dad, please don't hurt Mom," she cried. He swung his arm.
She fell.
Her head hit the corner of the table.
Blood.
Screams. Time froze. That night, I stopped being a victim. The falcon rose again. I grabbed him, used every ounce of training, and pinned him to the ground. I didn't say a word. I just held my daughter, locked us in the room, and promised myself, never again. No man will ever hurt her again. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I left everything behind, except Lena. Back in the hospital, the present bled into the past. I felt that same helpless rage boiling inside. Through the window, I could see the rain still falling outside. The world kept moving, but mine had stopped. Hours later, when Lena finally opened her eyes, her first instinct was to reach for her stomach. Her trembling fingers froze. Her eyes searched mine for answers, and I couldn't speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks before the truth even left my lips. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking, "please don't be angry with Ethan. It wasn't his fault. He loves me. His mother just doesn't understand me." Her words cut deeper than any blade. How could she still defend them? But as I looked at her pale face and fragile body, I swallowed my fury. There would be a time to fight, but not now. 3 days passed, and not a single call came from the Carter family. What Lena didn't know was that while she waited, I was about to make a decision that would change everything, and this time, the falcon would strike again. 3 days. That's how long it had been since the hospital. 3 endless days of silence from the Carter family. Lena's phone stayed still on the bedside table. No messages, no calls, not even a question asking if she was alive. Every time footsteps passed the hospital door, her eyes flickered with hope, but no one came. Watching her stare at that door broke something in me. On the 3rd morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I told the nurse to keep an eye on her and left. The moment I saw the Carter mansion again, my hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might crack. I didn't even bother ringing the bell this time. I pounded on the oak door with both fists. When it finally opened, Ethan Carter stood there, in silk pajamas, hair messy, face blank with annoyance. "What do you want, Elena?" he muttered. "What do I want?" My voice cracked. "How about a shred of decency? My daughter lost your child, and not one of you even showed up at the hospital." He smirked. "For what? To watch her cry? She couldn't even handle a pregnancy properly. She's weak, like her mother." That smile, that cold, twisted grin, I'll never forget it. For a second, I felt my body surge with rage, ready to strike. But then, something inside me went still, colder than the rain that soaked us both. I just looked at him, straight into his eyes. No words. No tears. Just silence, the kind that scares even monsters. Then I turned around and walked away. This wasn't over. As I fumbled for my car keys, something caught my eye, a tiny red blinking light across the street. Mr. Dalton's house. The retired professor who lived opposite the Carters. He had recently installed a new surveillance system, saying, "You can never be too careful around this neighborhood." My heart skipped. Could it be? Without thinking, I ran through the rain to his porch. Mr. Dalton opened the door, shocked to see me drenched and trembling.
"Elena?"
"What on earth happened to you?" My voice broke. "I need your help. Please, your cameras. I think they saw what happened that night." Without another word, he led me inside, made me sit, and poured me a cup of chamomile tea.
Drink.
Then we'll see. He sat at his desk, his wrinkled fingers typing quickly across the keyboard. Lines of footage scrolled across the screen, gray, blurred shapes moving in the storm. Then he froze the video. "There," he whispered. The image showed my daughter, kneeling in the backyard of the Carter mansion, drenched, shivering alone. The rain poured down around her, while inside, through the glass, the silhouettes of Ethan and his mother could be seen, drinking, laughing, ignoring her completely. Mrs. Carter even looked out once directly at Lena, then turned away. I covered my mouth, tears burning my eyes. Mr. Dalton shook his head in disbelief. "They're monsters," he muttered. He plugged in USB drive and began copying the footage. "Take this," he said, handing it to me, "and get justice for your girl. This kind of cruelty can't go unpunished." I took the small drive in my shaking hand. It was tiny, but it felt heavier than stone, like it carried every ounce of pain my daughter had suffered. That night, I couldn't sleep. The rain outside no longer felt like comfort. It sounded like a promise. Because by sunrise, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and the Carters had no idea what was coming next. By dawn, I was still awake, sitting on the couch with that small silver USB drive clutched in my hands. The rain had stopped, but my thoughts hadn't. Every drop that hit the window echoed my heartbeat. When Lena finally drifted into sleep at the hospital, I left a nurse to watch over her and drove across town to meet the only person I believed could help me, Alicia Monroe, one of San Diego's toughest lawyers. Her office sat on the top floor of a glass building that looked like it had never known warmth. Alicia was known for taking cases that no one else dared to touch, and for never losing. She greeted me calmly, her tone sharp but professional. "Mrs. Rivera, please sit. Tell me everything." I told her every single thing, from finding Lena in the rain to Ethan's cruel words to Mr. Dalton's video. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, her expression unreadable. When I handed her the USB, she plugged it in and pressed play. The footage lit up her screen. For the first time, I saw her jaw tighten. Her eyes didn't blink once until the video ended. When it did, she exhaled slowly and closed her laptop. "This," she said, tapping the drive with one finger, "is powerful. But it won't be easy. The Carters have money, friends, and influence. You'll be going to war against a family that's used to winning." "I don't care," I said. "I've already lost my grandchild. I won't lose justice too." A faint smile crossed her face.
Good.
"Then let's begin." That same afternoon, Alicia drafted a legal letter announcing our intent to sue the Carter family for emotional abuse and negligence toward a pregnant woman that resulted in severe harm. Each word was like a blade, precise, cold, unshakable. When I dropped the sealed envelope into the post office box, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't peace. It was fire. The kind that only burns brighter once you've lost everything. That night, I lay awake again. But this time, it wasn't grief that kept me up. It was unease. Around 3 a.m., I heard something. A faint creak. The soft thud of a drawer closing. I sat up, heart pounding. Was it the wind? Morning came, and the feeling still clung to me like fog. I decided to gather the documents Alicia had asked me to keep, Lena's medical records, the extra copies of the video. But when I opened the closet, my stomach dropped. The box where I kept everything was open. The papers gone. The folder with the hospital forms gone. And the USB. The USB wasn't there. My pulse roared in my ears. I tore through the house, checking every corner. Nothing. My home hadn't been robbed for money or jewelry. Only the evidence. Hands shaking, I called Alicia. They took it.
I cried.
All of it. The reports, the drive, everything's gone. She was silent for a moment, then her voice came back, firm and controlled. Listen to me carefully, Elena. Lock your doors. Don't touch anything that could have fingerprints. I'll send my investigator immediately. This wasn't random. The Carters are moving faster than we thought. I did as she said, bolting every lock. Moments later, my phone rang again. This time it was Mrs. Alvarez, the neighbor across the hall. Elena, she whispered, I just came from the market. People are saying terrible things about your daughter, that she lied about the pregnancy, that she's pretending to be a victim. My breath caught. What? They say the Carters told everyone she made it all up for attention. Before I could answer, another call came, this time from my cousin in Miami. Elena, what's going on with Lena?
There are rumors spreading online.
They're saying she's unstable, that she's making false accusations. My hands went numb. They had destroyed the physical evidence, and now they were destroying her name. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring out the window at the flickering city lights. I had underestimated them. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a war of reputation, and they were winning. Just when I thought we'd lost everything, a strange message appeared on my phone. No name.
No greeting.
Just 6 words that changed everything. I have a copy of the video. I must have read that message a dozen times. I have a copy of the video. If you truly want justice, meet me tomorrow at 4 p.m., the Blue Finch Cafe. Come alone. My first thought was that it had to be a trap, but my second thought was louder. What did I have left to lose? The next afternoon, I arrived early. The Blue Finch Cafe was small, tucked between an antique bookstore and a flower shop. The smell of roasted coffee filled the air. I chose a corner table, my heart hammering with every tick of the clock. At exactly 4, the door creaked open. A young woman stepped in, her hood pulled low. Her boots were soaked, and her movements carried the tension of someone always looking over her shoulder. She spotted me immediately and walked straight to my table. Without a word, she sat down and lowered her hood. My breath caught. I recognized her. It was Clara Carter, Ethan's younger sister. She'd always been quiet at family dinners, barely speaking under her mother's sharp gaze. But now, her eyes were fierce, a mix of fear and determination. Mrs. Rivera, she said, her voice soft but steady. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, black USB drive. She pushed it toward me across the table. This is what you're looking for. I froze. Why are you doing this? Clara looked down, twisting her hands together. Because what they did was unforgivable. My mother, my brother, they crossed a line I can't defend anymore. She took a deep breath and told me everything. After the lawsuit letter arrived, Clara had overheard her mother and brother arguing. They weren't scared about Lena's pain or the lost baby, only about the scandal ruining the Carter name. They hired someone to break into my house to steal the evidence. They paid online bots and gossip pages to spread lies, twisting Lena into a villain. And when they finally had the stolen USB, Ethan bragged about it, laughing that I wouldn't dare fight them now. But Clara wasn't laughing. That night, while the house slept, she sneaked into her brother's office, found the USB in his drawer, and copied the footage onto her own drive.
I
watched it, she whispered, her eyes glassy. I saw Lena kneeling in the rain, begging to come inside. I saw my mother look out the window and walk away. That image keeps me up every night. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. My mother always said family comes first, but she never meant love. She meant control. I can't live under that anymore. Please, Mrs. Rivera. Use this. End it. I reached across the table and held her trembling hand. Clara, you're brave. You just did what most people wouldn't dare. She shook her head.
No.
You're the brave one. I'm just tired of being silent. As she stood to leave, she turned to me one last time. Bring the truth to light, she said. For Lena and for me. When she walked out into the rain, I felt something shift in the air. For the first time in weeks, I had hope. I held that black USB drive in my palm like it was a sword, the kind forged from pain and truth. I didn't go home. I drove straight to Alicia Monroe's office. She was about to leave when I burst through the door, soaked from the drizzle, clutching the USB. Without a word, she plugged it in. The video began to play. When the screen showed Lena in the rain, Alicia's usual stone-cold face softened, her jaw tight, but her eyes burning with quiet rage. They just made a fatal mistake, she said slowly. By stealing the evidence and spreading lies, they've crossed from cruelty into criminal territory. She leaned back, her lips curling into a small, fierce smile. Now we'll not only sue them, we'll expose them. The next day, the story hit the internet, and within hours, the Carters' perfect reputation began to crumble. But the battle had only just begun, and the war for truth was about to go public. By morning, Alicia had already set the plan in motion. She reached out to one of her trusted contacts, Michael Torres, an investigative journalist known for tearing apart the lies of the wealthy. We met him at a small diner off Ocean Boulevard. Michael listened in silence as I told the story again, this time without tears, without hesitation. Every word carried the weight of what my daughter had endured. When the video played on his tablet, he said nothing, but his clenched jaw told me enough. This will burn the city down, he said quietly. By that afternoon, the article went live. The headline read, Pregnant woman forced into the cold while husband's family celebrates inside. Video evidence emerges. Within minutes, the story spread like wildfire. The footage, faces blurred for privacy, showed a drenched, shivering woman kneeling while laughter echoed from inside a mansion. Social media erupted. Comments flooded in. How could anyone do this? She's pregnant, for God's sake. Justice for Lena. The hashtag Justice for Lena trended worldwide within hours. Even international outlets picked up the story. For the first time, the silence that had suffocated us was broken by millions of voices shouting in outrage. By evening, I couldn't keep up with the calls. Neighbors who had avoided me were now apologizing. Mrs. Alvarez, the same woman who once believed the Carters' lies, came to my door in tears. Elena, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was wrong. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. We had truth on our side, and that was stronger than any rumor. Outside the Carter estate, a crowd gathered. Reporters, camera crews, angry citizens. When Ethan finally appeared, wearing a polished suit and fake calm, the noise grew deafening. He smiled at the cameras like a politician. This has all been taken out of context, he said smoothly. My mother-in-law is trying to extort us. My wife, unfortunately, suffers from emotional instability. She imagined a pregnancy that never existed. There was never a child. Inside the hospital room, Lena and I watched his live statement on TV. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then Lena broke down. But these weren't the fragile tears of before. They were hot, furious, and freeing. He's lying, Mom, she said between sobs. He's still lying. Alicia, who stood beside us, didn't flinch. She picked up her phone, her eyes sharp as glass. Time for part 2, she said. Minutes later, Michael published a second article with verified hospital documents proving that Lena had been 3 months pregnant and that the cause of miscarriage was hypothermia. The backlash hit like a tidal wave. The public turned completely. Ethan and his mother were no longer rich socialites. They were monsters. People threw eggs, trash, and words sharper than knives at the Carter mansion gates. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Then late that night, my phone rang. The voice on the other end was trembling. "Mrs. Rivera, it's Clara. My mother, she had a heart attack. They're taking her to the emergency room." My breath caught. Despite everything, I didn't wish pain on anyone, not even her. I called Alicia, and together we released a public statement urging people to stop the harassment. "Justice belongs in court, not in chaos," Alicia wrote. To my surprise, people listened. The crowd quieted. The story changed again, not just about revenge, but about dignity. For the first time in months, I felt that maybe the world was starting to understand what true justice really looked like.
But peace was short-lived.
Because the courtroom wasn't just about truth, it was about power. And when Ethan walked in that day, flanked by lawyers and cameras, I realized this fight wasn't over. It was just reaching its peak. The courthouse steps were swarming with cameras that morning. Reporters shouted questions, flashes went off like lightning, and the air hummed with tension. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Even the back row was crowded with journalists, whispering as they prepared to witness the storm. I sat beside Lena, holding her cold hand. Her face was pale but calm in the way people are when they've already lost everything and have nothing left to fear. Alicia sat on our other side, steady and focused, flipping through her notes like a soldier loading her weapon. Then the door opened. Ethan walked in, wearing an expensive navy suit, pretending confidence. But his eyes had lost that smug glow. He glanced at us briefly, then looked away. His mother didn't come. Word was she was still in the hospital. The judge entered. The room fell silent. The trial began. Ethan's lawyer stood first, smooth, calculated, full of practiced empathy. He painted Lena as unstable, emotional, even manipulative. "She was never pregnant," he said. "This is all part of a delusion, a tragic misunderstanding." He brought in two neighbors who claimed Lena acted strange and seemed depressed. They lied with ease, their eyes flicking nervously toward Ethan's lawyer after every sentence. I felt rage burn through me, but Alicia placed a hand on mine. "Let them talk," she whispered. "Truth has patience." When it was our turn, Alicia rose. Every eye in the room turned to her. She began softly, recounting the facts, the night of the storm, the humiliation, the loss. Then she pressed play. The lights dimmed slightly as the video filled the screen, the same haunting scene I'd watched so many times I could recite every frame. Lena, kneeling in the rain, the party lights flickering inside, the laughter, the silence, the cruelty. You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. Even the judge's stern face softened. I saw tears in the eyes of some women in the audience. When the screen went black, Alicia turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this is not imagination. This is evidence." Then she looked at Ethan. "And cruelty like this has a face." The judge cleared his throat, visibly shaken. "Does the defense wish to respond?" Ethan's lawyer hesitated. Then the judge added, "Call your next witness." Alicia smiled faintly. The prosecution calls Clara Carter to the stand. Ethan's head snapped up. His eyes widened. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. The side door opened and there she was. Clara walked in wearing a simple cream blouse and black pants, her shoulders straight, her expression calm but firm. She took the oath, then looked directly at her brother. Her voice trembled slightly at first, but gained strength with every word.
"I saw it all," she said. "I saw Lena outside that night.
I wanted to help, but my mother locked my door from the outside." The courtroom gasped. she continued, voice steady now. They treated her like a servant, not a wife. My mother and brother planned to destroy the evidence and ruin her name. That's why I copied the video. Because I couldn't be part of their lies anymore. Alicia let the silence sit for a moment. Heavy, powerful. Miss Carter, she asked gently, why risk everything to tell the truth? Clara's eyes filled with tears. Because silence makes you part of the crime. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Every eye turned toward Ethan. His mask finally cracked. His jaw tightened, his hands fidgeted, and sweat glistened at his temple. When Clara stepped down, there was nothing left for the defense to say. The judge took a deep breath. The court finds Ethan Carter guilty of emotional abuse and deliberate negligence, leading to physical and psychological harm. He is sentenced to 2 years of conditional imprisonment, 3 years of probation, and must pay compensation for damages. The gavel struck the desk, a sharp sound that echoed like thunder. I turned to Lena. She was crying, but smiling, a fragile, trembling smile of someone finally free. I held her tight as the cameras flashed. The Falcon had kept her promise. That evening, we left the courthouse and stood outside under a clear, golden sky. For the first time in months, Lena looked up instead of down. Mom, she whispered, I'm done crying for him. I want to start over. I nodded, my heart swelling with pride. Then let's begin again. But justice in court was only the first victory. Life still had its own way of testing us, and when the past came knocking one last time, it brought a letter that would change everything. Weeks passed after the trial, but the echoes of that gavel still lived in my chest. The world outside kept spinning, yet for us, it felt like life had just started again. Lena moved back home. My small house by the Marina River, once filled with silence, was now alive again with laughter, the clinking of dishes, and the scent of fresh coffee every morning. Sometimes, I'd catch her sitting by the window, looking at the sunlight on the water, her hand resting unconsciously over her stomach. Some wounds don't leave scars on the skin, only in the heart. But she was healing slowly, bravely. 2 weeks after the trial, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was familiar but weak. Mrs. Rivera, this is Clara. My heart tightened. My mother, she passed away this morning, she said quietly. The small trowel I'd been holding dropped to the ground with a dull clink. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Margaret Carter, the woman who had caused so much pain, was gone. And yet, I didn't feel triumph. Only a quiet sadness. Not every story ends with villains defeated and heroes smiling. Some end in silence, in lessons carved too late. I didn't attend the funeral. Neither did Lena. Instead, I sent a bouquet of white lilies, a symbol of peace, with a small card that read only, "May your soul find the kindness it never gave." A few days later, Clara came to visit us. She looked tired but lighter, free of the heavy shadow that had always followed her. "I'm leaving San Diego," she said, smiling faintly. "I got accepted into a journalism program in New York. I'm finally going to write about things that matter." Lena hugged her tightly. "Thank you for everything, Clara. You gave me back my voice." Clara smiled through tears.
No.
"You found it yourself. I just helped the world hear it." Before leaving, she handed me a sealed, cream-colored envelope. This was written by my mother before she died. She never sent it. I think you should read it. That night, Lena and I sat together on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp wrapping the room in gold. I carefully opened the letter. The handwriting was shaky, each word heavy with guilt.
Elena.
"I know you'll never forgive me, and you shouldn't. I spent my whole life guarding a reputation that meant nothing. I raised my children with fear, not love. The night your daughter begged in the rain, I watched, and I did nothing. That silence killed my own grandchild. I can't undo what I've done, but I can make sure no other woman suffers like she did. Inside the envelope was a second page, a copy of Margaret's final will. She had left nearly her entire personal fortune to a foundation for women and children who suffered abuse. Tears blurred my vision. I looked at Lena. She was crying, too, but they weren't tears of pain this time. It wasn't forgiveness. It was closure. Months passed. Spring came, painting the streets in white and orange blossoms. The scent of renewal filled the air. With the compensation from the trial and some savings I'd tucked away, Lena opened a small design studio in the Seaside district. She called it New Dawn. Her dresses weren't about glamour. They were about comfort, elegance, and strength. Each piece carried her story, her scars, her rebirth. I helped with the paperwork and deliveries, while she poured her heart into creating. And every time I saw her smiling at a new client, I knew she had found herself again. Sometimes we'd receive postcards from Clara, photos of city skylines and coffee shops in New York. She always ended her notes with the same line: "Truth shines brighter than any lie." One quiet afternoon, as the rain began to fall outside, Lena and I stood by the studio window watching the drops dance against the glass. "Mom," she said softly, "do you ever think about that night?" I nodded. "Every time it rains." "But this rain feels different," she smiled. "It's clean now. It doesn't hurt anymore." We stepped outside together once it stopped. The street shimmered in sunlight, and a faint rainbow stretched over the horizon. Lena looked up at it, her eyes glowing. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered, "for never giving up on me." I put my arm around her shoulders, my voice gentle. "I promised you long ago, Lena, no storm lasts forever. And after the rain, there's always light." Every story leaves a message, and this one is for every woman who's ever been silenced. You are stronger than your pain. Speak up. Fight back. Because silence only protects the cruel, but truth saves souls. Tell me, if you were in Elena's place, would you walk away or fight back the way she did? Share your thoughts below, because every story like this one might just give another woman the courage to stand up.